Hey folks, I'm Jack Watson, UI UX designer, illustrator, animator, and most of all, donut connoisseur. Today I'll be your host for another Illustrator marketing challenge. I think today will be really fun. This is something that gets asked about a lot. We're making our own mock-ups using the 3D effects. Remember to go get those links in the video's description. We've got a link to download your resources to create along with us today, as well as other Discord communities and other challenges. Once in Illustrator, we've got some resources. I've also got a couple decals down here off to the side to experiment with, because today we're going to be primarily focusing on creating our coffee mug, but I'll also go over how to create some decals of your own as well. So make sure before we get started that you've got your 3D materials panel open. You can find all of the windows that we're going to be working with today, all of the panels under this window drop down in the top. And the first one here, 3D materials, you want to make sure that's checked on. I've got it checked on. And while you're here, we're also going to be using the appearance panel, so make sure you've got that checked on as well. So to get started, we're going to be building our mug ourselves. It's easier than you may think. We're just going to start with an ellipse tool. So we're going to go over here, and if you don't see the ellipse, it's probably inside of the shape tools here. You might see the rectangle. Just hold down to drop into the ellipse tool. We're just going to drag out an ellipse on the artboard. Just dragging it out with the tool is going to let you create these like really funky ovals and ellipses. I'm just going to hold down shift to make sure that I'm constraining it to a perfect circle. We're not going to be using a fill today, so I'm just going to make sure that I've got my fill selected. It's in the front of my stroke, you can see over here. And I'm just going to set this to none. So if we zoom in here, the little swatch that's got a line through it is going to be set that to have no fill color on it. It's got no fill on it now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring our stroke to the front, and I'm going to go down, and today I'm going to edit the stroke in the stroke panel. So if you drop down to the stroke panel here, it might be hidden. You just can click. If you don't see all of the options, double clicking on the window will open them all up for you. And we're going to adjust the weight. We want it to be pretty wide. So I'm going to drop down and pick something that's pretty wide. 40, let's go with something a little bit wider. 80 looks good. You can kind of imagine, if we're looking, again, thinking about our blueprint idea, we're going to be looking at this from the top down. So this is a top-down view of our mug to get started. This is like the outside edge. So we're going to be using this to create like the edge of our mug, if that makes sense. So we've got that sorted. I'm going to change the color of my line here by double-clicking on the stroke. It's going to pull up the color picker. Now, whatever color I pick is going to be the base color for my mug, unless I use the substance material later. So for the time being, this is going to be the base color for my mug. So I'm going to just kind of adjust here. You can pick any color that you want. I think that like a diner, kind of classic diner, light bluish gray might be kind of cool. I'm going to go with a purple because I love purple. And so I'm going to go with like something like that. I think looks pretty good. I'm going to hit OK. I think that's going to complement our yellow in our little decals as well. All right, so now we've got the base here. The next thing to do is move on over to our 3D and materials panel. We've got a couple options we can choose from the object here. Plane is going to just rotate our object as if it was flat sitting on a plane. We don't really want that. Revolve's going to spin this around 360 degrees to make like it's going to make a donut. So I'm going to hit revolve, and it's going to make a nice donut for us, which would go great with our coffee, but not exactly what we're going for. And inflate might work, but that's more meant for things that are meant to be just kind of like slightly puffy or inflated like a balloon. So what we're going to be after today is going to be extrude. And we're going to use this depth here to extrude along the z-axis. So to get started, we're going to try and rotate this ourselves today using the 3D rotation. So to get started, I like to go down to the presets here, and I like to change this just to front. Front has no rotation. It's like we're looking at it just kind of flat on, right? And from there, I'm going to switch to the selection tool. You got to have the selection tool. I was on the ellipse tool. Switch to the selection, then you're going to get your little rotation widget here at the center. And if we drag this over here to kind of help us look at this in line with our little diagram here, we're going to start by tipping this cup back into space. So we need to have this tipped back. That's going to kind of give us the perspective that we want in order to extrude this along the z-axis. Because if we have it along the front and we increase our depth, we're not actually going to see anything because it's extruding towards us and it's currently facing us. So we need to rotate along that z in order to see the cup get some depth added to it. So we're just going to rotate that along the z. If you prefer to rotate using the options down here, you can as well. It's really just kind of a personal preference. And then from here, now it's going to get a little bit crazy because we're going to need to rotate along the other axes, and as we do that, it's going to impact, as we rotate, it's going to affect the other values, if that makes sense. So if we rotate along the Y here, you can see that it kind of spins it around like a top, but it keeps that original, like, that rotation that we have, that Z rotation. So it's rotating along the top, or around the top like a top, but it's got a slight tilt to it because we've added that X rotation. So it's just something to be aware of. In order to see what the Z is doing, we have to rotate it a little bit in one of the, either the X or the Y, because the Z is actually going to tilt it more towards or away from us. And it's just a little bit easier to see that rotation if you're using the, if you have it tilted a little bit first, similar to how it was easier to see the depth with it tilted a little bit first. So I'm just going to adjust the Y here. So I'm going to rotate it a little bit off, right? And then we can rotate the Z a little bit. And now we've got a mug that's kind of tilted towards us, right, in perspective, like it's sitting on a surface. If you have a hard time working with these, you can feel free to just choose one of these presets. For example, you could choose isometric top, and that would get you pretty close to what we kind of did here today, right? I'm just going to undo, and we're going to bring it back onto our artboard. I'm going to increase that depth a little bit more. I want my coffee cup to be a little bit taller. We need extra coffee today, right? I simply cannot forget, by the way, to say hi to everybody in our chat. Hello. If you are a coffee or tea person, let me know. You can chat with us every day at 9:30 a.m. Pacific on Behance or on the YouTube channel, the Adobe Live YouTube channel. I see Sean is talking about coffee mug and no fill. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, so we've got our coffee mug base kind of in here. I'm going to make some adjustments to my materials and my lighting panel here just to get like the look and feel that I want. You could feel free to use substance materials as well, but for today we're just going to stick with the base material. I want this to have a little bit of a glossy effect. So in order to get that, I can increase the base properties down here of my base material and just bring the metallic up. And that's going to give us a little bit of shine. It's not hard, it's a little bit hard to see, but if we switch over to the lighting and we make some adjustments in the lighting panel, you'll be able to see what I mean. So in materials, roughness, we want to have that pretty low, and metallic, we want to have that pretty high to get that like high gloss look of like glazed ceramic essentially. So in our lighting, I like to start with the upper left, just kind of a personal preference. You can see it already kind of gives us a nice highlight on the edge of our cup here. And I find it easier for me to see what's going on, and we're going to want to have a shadow on to kind of ground it in our scene. Remember, this is a mock-up. We want it to look like it's sitting on a surface. So I'm going to turn on my shadows, and then with my shadows on, I can see where my light is hitting, right? So right now, it's hitting kind of like the upper left, but the shadow's kind of cast from the front. So if I want to change the position of my light, I can just go over here to the rotation, and as I rotate it around, you're going to see that it's going to change where my shadow falls and where my light hits the edge of my cup. So I also want to adjust my height a little bit. I don't want my cast shadow to be so long. So if I bring the height up, I can bring that shadow so it's a little bit closer to the mug and a little less long, if that makes sense. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull up the intensity of our light. Remember that these top settings up here are going to be for the like spotlight that's hitting our light. So right now we're just going to increase the intensity of our spotlight, and I will increase the intensity of our ambient light as well so we can see our mug a little bit better. If you want to see what this softness option does, you're going to want to turn on ray tracing. However, make sure that you save before you do this, because it's a little bit of an intense process on your computer. It can cause your computer to slow down a little bit, and so you want to just like save, press ray tracing, and if it's taken a while, go get yourself a cup of coffee or tea. So I'm going to turn that on, and you can see that it's going to change the lighting parameters on my 3D object. It's going to take a minute, even on my computer, to load here. And then as we adjust this softness value, so if I bring this up, right now you can see that my shadow's pretty dark and a little bit like, doesn't have as diffuse of an edge. And if I bring that up, it's going to soften that edge. It's going to like make it a little bit softer. The light's going to be a little bit more diffuse. So I like to turn this on and off as I'm working. So I'll kind of increase it and get it to where I want it to be. And then I'll just go ahead and turn this off so that I don't have to, wait for my computer to render it every time I make an adjustment. So you can turn that on and off as you'd like. The other thing that I'm going to do for this coffee mug is I'm going to go over here to Object, and I think we need to add a little bit of a bevel just to this top edge, because coffee mugs generally don't have a flat top to them. They're a little bit round. So I'm going to check on Bevel right in my Object panel, and we're going to pick a round bevel. You could feel free to make this, 100% round if you want. I think I'm going to go with something kind of a little bit in between, not 100% round, not 100% flat. But you can see that because we have that nice metallic increase on our base material parameter, we're getting that nice highlight edge, which is great to see. So there we go. Now we've got our base mug. I'm going to hit Command C and Command F to make a copy of this that keeps my lighting, and we're going to use that shape in order to make our handle. So we're going to go to Command C and Command F to copy and paste. And then to copy and paste in front, actually, I'm going to go over to my direct selection tool. I'm going to select the far left point, and I'm just going to delete it. And that's going to give me the shape that I need for my handle, but it's in the wrong perspective. So if I go up here, we're going to decrease the depth, so it doesn't need to be as tall as we have it. And then just using that rotation widget, I'm going to rotate it towards me first. So I'm going to bring it towards me, so it's going to be a little bit more vertical, right? And then I'm going to rotate along the Z-axis to bring it closer to my mug. So now we've got something that's vertical, right? And then we can rotate along the Y to kind of turn it into place. And I can just kind of manipulate this, kind of getting it to where I want it to be placed on my mug. It's a little bit large, so I'm going to grab the corner and hold down Shift to scale it down a little bit and just kind of get it into place along our mug. You can continue to kind of like adjust these. Take your time with this part of the process in order to get everything kind of lined up and looking good. Oop, I grabbed my mug by accident. There we go. And again, if you don't feel confident with this, you can go ahead and just pick a preset. So there we go. All right, we're going to do one more thing, and this is totally optional here, but I think that it kind of helps add to the realism. It's a perfectly fine handle, but we're going to go down here, and we're going to actually hide our 3D materials for effect for the moment in the appearance panel by just poking out the eye. And now I'm going to drag it over so we can actually see our handle. And we're going to use the width tool. So I'm going to go over here to the width tool, and I'm going to select that. And this lets you adjust the width profile of your stroke, making parts of it wider and more narrow. And if I click on the width tool, there's two things I need to do first. First, I need to add some points to hold the line, essentially, to hold the line weight. So near the edge of my handle, where the cut edge is, I'm going to drag. I'm going to click close to that edge, and I'm going to drag up until I get the exact same width that I currently have. So I'm just going to drag out 2 points, holding the width of my line. And then from there, I can drag on the very, very end. You can see when I hover over, it's going to give me that end point. I'm going to drag this out. And what this does is it lets me have wider edges where the mug joins the handle to the base of the mug. If you've ever seen a ceramic mug, they usually have that like edge where it's been kind of smooshed against the mug, so that's what we're kind of going for, a little added extra realism. I find it easier to do this type of work with the effect turned off, both for conserving, my computer's memory, but also it's just easier to visualize. And then I'm going to hit the again to reveal my lovely handle, and we can just drag it with the selection tool back onto our mug to make it have that kind of like smooshed on effect. Perfect. All right, now we're ready to add some decals, and I'm going to first show you how to make your own. We're going to go really simple today. I'm just going to zoom out really quick. We're going to pick the type tool, and going along with our little sun, we're going to write out good morning. So I'm going to click to make some point type. Up in the control bar, I'll enlarge it to 72 in the size drop down. And then I've got my text selected, but if you don't, you can just double click to select your text. Type out good. I'll hit enter or return to make a hard line break, and I'm going to type out morning. So now we've got our text. I've already gone ahead and picked a font from Adobe Fonts. I've got the link over here in your resources, but it's going to be Hoos Round, H-O-O-S. Oop. I accidentally clicked the button. So in the character panel up here, I'm going to select where it says Myriad Pro, and instead I'm going to type out that Hoos Round. It's going to give us a nice, cute little round text there. I'll use the eyedropper to just grab the sunny yellow from my sunshine to keep everything consistent color-wise. And we'll add a little bit of a wave to this, I think. We'll go up here to the envelope options at the top. You can quickly add envelope distorts to the text that you want just by clicking on this little icon. And you could pick any of these. Some of these would look really cute, like Arch Upper would look really cute if you had the text centered. I'm just going to go really, really simple with a rise. Moving this bend option is going to change where your bend starts and ends, and also increase or decrease the amount of bend. So we're just going to add a little bit of a bend to this and hit OK. Now, the next part is, again, totally optional, but if you want to add a white border to this, so if you don't want to add a white border, feel free to keep on moving. But I want to show you how you can add a white border to this, and there's a lot of different ways you can add a white border to text. In this case, I'm going to use a method that'll work with either text or object, so if you have like a logo or something instead of text, this would work for that as well. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to Object, and we're going to go to Expand. Expand is going to take our effect, and it's going to break it out into individual shapes. So instead of having text, instead of having this envelope distort, we're just going to get the individual letters. The next thing that I need to do is I need to go to, oh, wrong, I didn't mean to right click. I'm going to go to Object, Compound Path, and I'm going to go to Make. That's going to make my text, if you see in my Layers panel, from being individual objects to being one single compound path all merged together. And that's going to help us do the next step here, which is going to be making an offset path. Offset path is one of my favorite tools in Illustrator, so I'm going to go to Object, Path, Offset Path, and you can see when I do that, it adds another shape around my letters that is exactly perfectly expanded out or in. If we go down like the negative values, so we go -5, it's going to set our path inside of our letters. If we go into the positive values, like I think we had 10 or 15 or something like that, we'll do like 15. It's going to expand it outwards. So that's a really easy way to add a border to our shape. We're going to hit OK, and it's going to be in front. It's okay. You can either right click or go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back, and it's going to put it behind our letters. We can't see because it's the same color. Then I can just click on my fill to bring it to the front, double click to get to my color picker, and I'm going to drag it to white. I'm just going to hit OK. And if I select both of these with the selection tool, dragging to select, and I bring them off the artboard, you can actually see that that is got a white background with our text. All right, now it's time to add our decals. So going over to our materials panel, that you can add your decals just like you would add substance materials. You're going to click on this little plus here, and instead of hitting materials, with the thing that you want to make a graphic, you're going to click Add as a single graphic. Adding as multiple graphics is going to split your graphic into individual shapes, and we don't actually want to do that. We want to keep everything self-contained into a single graphic. So I'm going to hit that Add Single Graphic. It's going to automatically transport you over to this Graphics tab. If you want to get to that in any other way, like you're not, you're already in the default, all you have to do is click on that graphics, and it's going to take you over here. And basically this panel is showing me all of my symbols panel. So all of the artwork that's in here already kind of by default are in the symbols panel in Illustrator. If we go to Window and we drop down to symbols, we can find them all in there as well. All right, so now we're ready to add our decal. We're going to click on the 3D object that we want to add our decal to. So we want to add it to our base cup. And all we have to do here is super easy, is just click on that graphic that we added. So we scroll down and we click on our good morning, and it's automatically going to add it to our mug. And this is going to have its own sort of transform widget here, right? So it's going to be similar to how you kind of work with the selection tool, right? You hover over the corner here and we're getting a little rotate option, so we can rotate it around. We've got, if we hover over another one of these points, we're going to get a scale, so we can scale it up. And we can also kind of move it into place and get it kind of lined up where we want it to, right? Hover over and rotate. We can also add multiple graphics to this. So if we wanted to also add our little sunny sticker, all I have to do is click, and I can move this around the same way, just using this little widget here to kind of rotate and manipulate. There's a couple other things here that you want to note. So for example, our sunshine here is in front of our text right now, and we don't really want that. So over here in the materials graphics panel, under the properties, you can think of this as your little, like a little layers panel for your decals or your graphics. And so I can click on this text down here, and I can just drag it up just like I would in the layers panel. And that's going to bring my graphic in front of my sun, so I can kind of then position it around and get it to where I want it to be, so it's not, you know, my sunshine isn't blocking my good morning text. And then if I click on my sun again, it's going to let me manipulate that. So the idea here is that you just click on the object that you want to edit, or the graphic that you want to edit. I lost my sun. There we go. Click on the thing that you want to edit. There's one important thing to know about this, and that is you cannot just hit delete to remove a graphic. If you hit delete, it's going to delete your entire 3D object, so don't do that. There's a little trash can icon here, so if I select my text here and I hit this little trash can, that's how you're going to delete your graphics. You don't want to hit delete, because if you hit delete, it's going to delete your whole shape. So if we undo to bring it back, just make sure you hit that little garbage can there to remove it. If you don't feel confident working with the widget here, you can also adjust the scale down here using this little scale slider if you kind of prefer, as well as the rotation. So there you go. You can feel free to kind of continue to layer these stickers on as you want, or decals, and get them in position. But once you're ready to share your work with everybody, you're going to want to go to File, Export, Export for Screens. Make sure that you've got your artboard selected, and we're going to hit Export Artboard. You're going to go over to our Discord. This is, the link for our Discord is in the description below this video. Our moderator, Annika, just shared a link to that as well, I think. Yeah. And you're going to want to go to the Daily Creative Challenge channel under DCC Feedback. And all you got to do is navigate to where your file exported, click on your PNG or JPEG, and I just like to drag it straight into Discord like this. Ooh, one important thing to note. This is important. This is good that this happened. We need to make sure that if you want to have a white background on your image, go to Export for Screens, and in your settings down here, click here and make sure you've got, instead of transparent, you want white for your background. And we're going to just replace that and go back to Discord, delete that image, and add our one with our white background. And then you just hit enter to share. You can check out what everybody's working on. We've got moderators here in the chat to give you feedback on your work. Moderators and mentors, my bad. And you can see what everybody's doing. Lauren here did the text challenge. I think this is the iridescent car paint texture, which I absolutely love. I love the little sparkles. It's one of my favorite materials to play with. And I see you've got the little beveled candy heart texture as well. Nice job there. Looking good. All right, but unfortunately, that's going to be all the time that we have for today's stream. I hope you enjoyed. Keep working on your design. Share. I'd love to see your work in the Discord. This was a marketing challenge, again, in Illustrator, and we went over the 3D materials panel today, specifically the materials graphics panel, so we could add some decals to our mug, as well as offset path for making decals. We also went over the 3D objects panel in order to create our mug and get everything lined up in perspective. We're live every day at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time at behance.net/Adobe Live and on YouTube. Oh, hang on, I think we've got a quick question. I want to scroll up. Mel wants to know ways to make 3D item like this ready for EPS t-shirt process. I don't think you would want to use this process for making a EPS file for print. Maybe if you post in the Discord and ask a question, I can address that in more detail. Yeah, Stick around, we've got more live content all day, so stay here and you'll be magically teleported to the next stream, which is going to be our 3D bootcamp if you want more 3D after me. But I'm gonna see you all later. Bye, everyone.